Hello and welcome to this fifth video of our Learning the Ethics Bowl Essentials series. In this video, we're going to be talking about the judging criteria that are going to be used to assess your performances in an ethics bowl. So we've talked before about the fact that there are essentially 5 phases in an ethics bowl match, and that each phase is basically repeated twice for once for each of the 2 cases that are discussed in a match. Now, if you haven't done so already, I invite you to go to ethicsbowl.ca and to click the Resource and Documents tab and to download the scoring sheet and have a look at it. It's going to give you a pretty good understanding of how the scoring is going to be done. The whole description of the judging criteria is also available there, so I invite you to have a look at that. What we're going to do in this video is just go over that, and I'm going to comment a little bit about what we would like to see in each of the phases of an ethics bowl. So, about the first phase, the presentation phase, you're going to be receiving 15 points for it, and it's going to be assessed along 3 different axes, each of which worth 5 points. So the first axis is clarity and systematicity. And here's what we want to see in this respect. So first of all, with respect to clarity, we want you to be using clear terminology. Right? So don't use jargon that you're not exactly sure how it works. Ideally, you would be mostly using vocabulary that pretty much anybody in the audience could understand fairly easily. Furthermore, we want to make sure that what you're saying is relevant to the moderator's question. Right? So some teams occasionally just say generalities about the cases, and don't specifically address the moderator's question. So that is where you would probably be penalized if you didn't directly answer the moderator's question. Regarding systematicity, we want to make sure that you are presenting a well-structured and cohesive argument. We want to make sure that you have clearly identified what is the answer to the moderator's question. We want to make sure that you have clearly identified what are the arguments and the reasons that you are offering in support of your own position. We want to make sure that you've also discussed alternatives to your own position and that you have clearly identified them as such so that we're not confused between what is your view and what is the view of other people. Similarly, we want to make sure that we can distinguish what are the arguments supporting your view and what are the counter arguments that you are presenting against other people's views. So one thing that we would really encourage you to do in order to ensure that your presentation is clear and systematic would be to signpost, that is to say, to clearly say what it is you're saying. You begin the statement of your position with, our answer to the moderator's question is, and then you say it. Right? So in this way, nobody can really misunderstand what you are saying. A last thing that is relevant to clarity and systematicity is that when you're transitioning from one team member talking to another one, that you do so seamlessly by explaining the transition that is happening there and how the things that the 2 participants say relate to each other. All right? So I hope that helps you to understand a little bit more this first criterion. Now, with respect to the second axis along which we examine the leading team's presentation is what we call the ethical dimension or the moral dimension. Now, here we want to make sure that you display awareness of the issues that are associated with the moderator's question. In particular, we want to make sure that you correctly identify the central moral dimension, which is really at issue with what the moderator asked you. As part of that, you might want to say or to explain why this question might give rise to controversy or what is problematic about it. You might also want to identify what is at stake, depending on how we answer the question. And again, we want to make sure that the reasons and the arguments that you offer in support of your answer are actually objectively very strong reasons. So this is where it goes under this second axis of the presentation criterion. Now let's advance to the third axis, which is that you ought to discuss multiple viewpoints, not just your own viewpoint. Why do we want to see that? Well, that's because we try very hard to make you discuss cases that are highly complex and that can give rise to intelligent disagreement. So here what we want to see is that you show a good understanding of how this case might lead to reasonable disagreement. We want you to articulate alternative viewpoints, but not just straw man. We want you to articulate strong and well-articulated viewpoints, which you're going to be assessing in a charitable manner and without bias. All right? So if you do all of that, that's going to be a remarkable presentation, and you're going to be scoring very high. Let's move to the commentary. Now, in the commentary, what we want to see is that your commentary substantially engages with the opening team's presentation. Right, so the contributions that you offer, be they probing questions or presentation of additional arguments or additional facts and figures, that you have done so in a way that is very much relevant to what the opening team said. If you object to some of the point of the opening presentation, then make sure that you're not begging the question against their position. And once again, your commentary should display a high level of clarity and systematicity, which is going to be assessed just like it was for the presentation. When you offer criticism or other, collaborative contributions, well, try to make sure that you do so in a way that is constructive. And what we mean by that is that what you're saying could very plausibly be used by the leading team so that they can further reflect on what they said and end up with an even better answer to the moderator's question. Right? So it shouldn't be just confrontational, it shouldn't be just a rebuttal, but rather it should really be a contribution to this whole dialectical process that is happening. And once again, in the commentary, we want to make sure that you have a good understanding of the case, right? That you understand the moral dimension that is under scrutiny. So I hope that it helps you to slightly better understand what you have to do in your commentary. Now, let's look at the response from the leading team. So here we want to make sure that you have actively listened to the contributions offered by the responding team in their commentary. So we want to make sure that you not only actively listened to what they were saying, but that you were open to their constructive criticism. So when you're going to reply to them or respond to them, make sure that you do so in a way that rigorously addresses the substance of the points that they made, rather than trying to offer a more contrived response or one that is perhaps not entirely fair to what was said in the commentary. If you happen to agree with some of the points that were made in the commentary, then make sure to incorporate them into your viewpoint and to offer a new synthesis of all the points that were made so that we have an even better answer to the moderator's question. And if there are points that you disagree with, then make sure to identify them as such and to offer very strong and compelling reason to disagree with what was said in the commentary. So what we want to see here is intellectually honest, flexible, and adaptable thinking. And if you do so, again, that's going to be a fantastic response and you're going to score very well. Okay, so let's move to the next phase, which is the judge's question and answer period. So that one is worth 20 points. So it is a very important phase of the match. When a judge asks a question, make sure you pay attention, right? So that they feel like you really are trying hard to understand the smallest subtleties in the question that they are asking. And then try to respond with composure, right? As you answer their question, try to give a complete answer rather than answering just a part of their question. As you offer your answer to their question, try to show that you understand why the question is important, and use it as an opportunity to show that you have a deep and comprehensive understanding of the case that's under discussion, as opposed to you prepare your little argument here and then they ask you to talk about something slightly broader and you're caught flat-footed, right? So that wouldn't look very good. And as you answer the judge's question, also make sure to keep an open mind. And if they do bring a very good point, once again, it's never too late to adjust your position in order to show that you're able to think about this case in a flexible manner. The last criterion is the respectful dialogue criterion. So here what we don't want to see really is something that is often part of a traditional debate, namely just oppositional stance where the two teams are butting head. If someone or an entire team displays a very brash attitude that is not conducive to collaborative arguing, you're also going to be penalized for that with respect to respectful dialogue, right? So if you have made sure that your presentation, commentary, response, answers to the judge's Q&A are faithful to the complexity of the case, and that you have actually tried to take part in a collaborative argumentation, then you're going to be doing quite well. If you have engaged with the points made by the other team in a respectful manner, you're going to be doing well. And as part of this criterion, of course, we want to make sure that the participants are acting in a polite manner. But politeness is not really what we are after here. We want to make sure just that you were respectful in the sense that you did what needed to be done for both teams to reach a better understanding of the case. So this is it for those criteria. And my apologies. And once again, just try to make sure you offer strong reasons that are reflective of the complexity of the case. And furthermore, show that you are working with the other team so that everybody has a more refined understanding of the case, and you're going to be doing great. All right. Thank you, and see you in the next video.